Party animals, like and subscribe if you want to have ceiling games from your running backs, just like Mark Ingram. Say today I join and I just have I got a ticket, right? And that's my ticket. And I made a lineup by hand for a NFL tournament. My process when I make one lineup would be, okay, because this is how I do it is I have to figure out my quarterback and my stack first, and I say, you know what? Let me play Deshaun Watson. And I don't say, let me play Kenny Stills with him after. I say, well, I got to get the best guy with Deshaun Watson. That would be DeAndre Hopkins. So I fit them too. And then I start working. If I wanted to do a game stack, I'd say, well, who are they playing? Let me run it back with at least the best receiver that I think. And let me see how correlation works. And I'd actually take time picking every single player in the lineup, right? To where it makes sense. If a lot of people are going to stack Winston to Godwin, let me do like Peyton Barber as my guy, since I would probably, I'm picking a different stack. So let me put Peyton Barber to kind of mitigate those guys. That way when my guy scores, it's negative correlation with the other guy. And I start thinking of all of this as I'm making my lineups, right? And essentially, if you're making 150, that's how you want it to be if you're making 150. Now, the way FC works and Optimizer works is it's going to just make the highest projected lineup possible. Right? It does not care. As long as it's following your settings and your rules, it just wants to make the highest projected lineup possible. And if that means playing Deshaun Watson to Kenny Stills because it can fit in a Michael Thomas, Julio, whoever it wants, then it's going to do that. And that's why sometimes you can land on Kenny Stills instead of DeAndre Hopkins, right? What's up, Pat? How you doing, brother? Hello, Proxy Manny. You can land on Kenny Stills instead of DeAndre Hopkins. Last week, for me, it was I landed on Tannehill to Corey Davis instead of Tannehill to A.J. Brown. Now, when I go back after the fact and I see that, I had a lot of Deshaun Watson with Kenny Stills. Why, if Kenny Stills was projected like 5 points less, 6, 7, 8 points less than was DeAndre Hopkins? Why did I go to Corey Davis if he was projected 4 points less than A.J. Brown? And I start kicking myself because it's just like, I should see this beforehand. And because I'm trying to make so many lineups, then I kind of let that go. And essentially how I mentioned him right, but then trying to have 150 lineups all do what I'm trying to do, it's already a challenge, and that's kind of where I've been failing a little bit, right? So here's how I'm going to proceed with this. The stack should always be the very best stack you can make, right? I'm so not in favor of having a stack just for value, right? Then why are you stacking? You know what I mean? It's like, I just want to have Deshaun Watson just with like Kiki QT just so I can have a stack. Then why are you stacking? Just don't stack then. I mean, you might as well just play Deshaun Watson with someone else instead of Watson with QT or someone just so you can have the 3K guy, right? It doesn't make any sense. Same thing with baseball. Like, I'm going to stack I'm going to stack the Boston Red Sox, but I'm going to stack like Brock Holt, Sandy Leone, and then what's the point of stacking the Red Sox? The reason you're stacking the Red Sox is so you can get Mookie, JD, all these guys, right? Same thing in football. If I'm stacking Watson, it's so I can play Hopkins with him. You know what I mean? If I'm playing Mahomes, it's so I can play Kelsey or Tyreek Hill, not so I can go down to the Watkins and, DeMarcus Robinson. Like, that's not the point. What's the point in playing, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to fix, and I saw this kind of ahead of time, but really hard to keep it all together in 150 lineups, right? And that's where I think people are struggling, at least in stacks when stacks are concerned, right? That's where I think the struggle is. Just kind of having that one lineup mentality for 150 lineups, or if you run more, 200, or if you run less, 50 or 40 or 30 lineups is a tough challenge. But if we can perfect this, brother, I mean, the results are night and day, right? If you somehow landed on Garoppolo last week, but you had Garoppolo to only Debo Samuel because it was cheap enough. I mean, the best stack would have probably been Kittle or Sanders, right? I mean, you saw it with projections, but because the other one is cheaper and, you know, better point per dollar, then it uses the cheaper guy always. But because it's just programmed to give you the highest projected lineup, not the highest projected stack, right? And I think that's where we can, you know, just change it a little bit. I think if we do that, try to rewind. Go to lineup rewind, and you'll see the difference. And I promise you'll see the difference. You'll come back and be like, Manny, matter of fact, you a genius.